if there is anything else in this world that you could see yourself being happy doing, you should go do it. And I have applied that to every step of my career because life is short and way too short to show up every day doing something that you're miserable doing.
Welcome to Creative Coordinates, the podcast spotlighting the creative and cultural leaders shaping the WSA community and beyond. Today's guest is Kris Moon, COO of a21 and former president and COO of the James Beard Foundation. From nonprofit leadership to producing some of the world's top cultural festivals, Kris's journey offers a masterclass in building experiences that move people. Kris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I had a question here, but in our pregame, I think it's very apropos to the conversation.
Okay.
You didn't start in food. You started in music.
I did.
Tell us about that.
I did. So I went to Boston University and studied to be an opera singer. I was in the vocal performance program there. Graduated, moved to New York with a desire to pursue a career in Broadway. Had decided I really didn't want to be an opera singer, but wanted to kind of pursue singing and being on stage. And that's what brought me to New York originally. And it was a very different time in my life, but I worked the first 4 years I lived in New York as a professional pianist. So I had always played the piano since I was growing up. I didn't major in that in college, but found a career in that in New York City, playing for aspiring Broadway actors, playing for auditions, playing for off-Broadway shows. I was a staff pianist at NYU and the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. And that's what it ultimately brought me to New York City.
And not that anything's wrong with transitioning, but what was it from the world of music to the culinary world? Was that the shift you made? And was there a moment where you knew that it was time to try something else out?
It wasn't, the shift into food was not intentional. I had moved here to be on stage and was very fortunate to find a career where I was making a living doing music, but it was behind a piano. And after about 4 years of that, I realized that's not why I moved here. I moved here to pursue the thing that really makes me happy, which was being on stage and singing. And I'd kind of appreciated that the piano thing had kind of consumed all of my time, which meant I wasn't auditioning anymore. I wasn't pursuing the actual dream. And I just had a revelation one day that I was never going to know whether that other dream could happen if I didn't free up my time to get back into auditioning. And so it was just one of those moments like probably a lot of actors have in New York, which is while I'm doing this, I have to pay my bills. And I had waited tables in high school growing up and said, okay, I'm quitting all of my piano work so I can focus on this dream, but I've got to pay my bills. So went schlepping around New York City looking for a job as a waiter and ended up getting hired at Jane Restaurant on Houston Street, which was just a couple years old at that point in time. And that was the beginning of the transition into food, which again I thought was just to pay the bills, but quickly moved my way into doing a lot of their private events, managing on the weekends, learned to be a bartender, and then suddenly was kind of helping to run the restaurant.
And how many years did you spend at Jane?
I was at Jane for about 2.5.
Okay.
And then I did a brief stint at Soho House, and then was called to pop over to a restaurant called Sapa that is no longer around, which is on 24th Street, with a chef named Patricia Yo. But the general manager there I had worked with at Jane, and he was building up his team, and so I hopped over there. And it was great. She was in this incredible moment in her career where she had been Bobby Flay's sous chef for a bunch of years, and then she had gone off on her own. She had 3 restaurants. She had a cookbook out. She was on Iron Chef that year, and so she's really having that kind of celebrity chef moment. And I came into the restaurant, and it was kind of just the right time to be there and get to know her and to be on that journey with her.
And the skills you learned at Jane were transferable to this new restaurant? Or did you feel like you were stepping into something with a lot more of a real pedigree in the industry, or it still took time to get acclimated?
I definitely, the background from Jane was very helpful. Jane had a great staff training program, wine education. We were learning about wine every week. I mean, they were really committed to that. Going to Sapa was a bit of a step up, a much bigger restaurant, different price point type of thing. But it was the right next stepping stone, and they gave me a lot of opportunities there. I got to step into a role there where I was helping do all of their private events, and so dealing with buyouts of the restaurant and doing some of the managing there as well. And then one day she sat me down and she said, "I want you to be my guy." And I said, "I don't know what that means." She said, "I want you to be my guy," which means if I'm going to the Today Show to do a cooking segment, I want you to set it up. If I'm doing a corporate event, I want you to take care of it. So I was like, I'm kind of your personal assistant, kind of your publicist, kind of your caretaker.
Jack of all trades, right?
And so that's what I did. And I did that with her for about a year until I said, okay, I'm ready for the next step. And she said, let me help you brainstorm places where that next step could be. And one of those places was the James Beard Foundation. And so she sent them my resume. And she sent my resume on a Monday. I got a response on Monday afternoon that said, this is perfect timing. We just posted a job for a director of operations at the James Beard House. I had my first interview on Tuesday. I had my second interview on Thursday. I had my final interview with the president at the time on Friday. And I started as the director of operations at the James Beard House not even 2 weeks after she sent them my resume.
Amazing.
In 2007.
And you ended up spending 17 years there?
I did.
So in those 17 years, and we could break it down and we could talk about a lot of things today, but how do you like to define your experience working with such a great organization?
I was very fortunate about when I came into JBF. I think the organization was kind of has gone through a bunch of iterations, or what I would describe as chapters. And I think I was very lucky that my own professional development and the chapters you go through as an individual in your professional development aligned pretty nicely to the cadence that JBF was on. And so, again, which was just really serendipitous, but I felt like by the time I was ready to say, okay, what's my next step here? The organization had kind of grown and evolved. And when I was ready to ask that question, Susan, our former president, was always, I have a next step for you. We're going to do this new thing, right? We're going to tackle this new thing, and I think you're the right person to try to figure it out. And so when I look back at my 17 years at JBF, to me, it's kind of 7 or 8 different chapters where I was doing operations, and then I was moving into fundraising, and then I was helping create the JBF Impact programs, which are all the sustainability and policy programs that they do now, to the last chapter, I'll call it, before I left, where I got to help create the Beard Foundation's presence at Pier 57 here in New York and design that, go through construction, build it, and then run the operation for 2 years. And so it's funny to me because when I just departed was the first time I'd really reflected that it was 17 years, but it never felt like 17 years because it was always new, right? It was like a couple years and then on to the next thing that the organization is trying to build, evolve, launch.
And ultimately you ascended to be the president of the organization.
I did.
So I would imagine all of those experiences and moments led up to you being capable of understanding the ins and outs of the organization.
I feel really, really grateful for my time there because I think it was exactly that. I had a perspective in my role as president and COO that only I could have had because I had worked in almost every department in that organization doing a variety of different things. And, it was a really exciting place to be. And it's an organization I still love dearly, of course.
I mean, everyone's familiar in mainstream with JBF more than anything from the awards, right?
Yes.
If you were explaining what JBF is or was and is today.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is a national culinary nonprofit organization here based in the U.S. that is committed to advancing this idea of good food for good, and that food, the ultimate kind of place or intersection that we should celebrate in food is where the enjoyment of food, that good food piece, the gastronomy, the kind of power of food and sitting down around a table, where that intersects with how the industry and us as consumers make decisions to create a better food world, a more sustainable food world, a more inclusive food world, And Claire, the current CEO, kind of used to talk about it as the intersection of pleasure and purpose, right? And that the Beard Foundation was about helping the industry advance to be more inclusive, more sustainable, more reflective of the demographic of what the population looks like in the United States, and leaning into that celebration piece, while not kind of forgetting that JBF is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3. And so all of the things that JBF does needs to be in service of its mission, right? Creating a better food world, creating a more sustainable food world. And so blending together that pleasure and purpose piece, which again, I think is what makes the Beard Foundation really distinct from kind of other food events, right? Where it is really about creating just a great experience, right? Something that is best in class and fun, which is a lot of what I get to do now.
Right.
But making sure that those events are infused with real purpose and mission.
And do you feel like the Pier 57, I understand the real estate side, the construction, development, but ultimately it's ongoing, living, breathing, the experience that happens there. Has that served as a really relevant transition when you're doing the work you're doing or joining an A21?
Absolutely. I mean, I think all of my experience at JBF, now that I've been in my new seat about 5 months, is has a relevance to what I'm doing now. From the fundraising work to running the corporate sponsorship team at James Beard Foundation and working with corporate entities, to managing the financial side and working through P&Ls and all of that, to the programming piece at Pier 57, which the beautiful thing about that project for JBF is that Platform by JBF, which is the kind of event space that the Beard Foundation is running there, is about bringing through talent on a kind of weekly basis from all across the United States and even internationally that tells this story, right? That helps consumers who love food and beverage learn experientially, be exposed to something new, learn about, where certain beverages come from, how certain foods are grown, culinary traditions, etc., through this very immersive experiential way. And so, that's what we used to do at the James Beard House before the pandemic, in a different way, and now doing it at Pier 57. And so for me now, as I'm in my seat at A21, and we've got this incredible portfolio of culinary events, where we're curating the talent. We're largely curating who are the chefs, who are the restaurateurs, who are the beverage professionals. There's just such a nice backdrop there that I experienced in such a long period at James Beard Foundation to really have a pulse on kind of the industry across the United States. And okay, great. Well, now we're working on our Atlanta Food and Wine Festival. Who's the relevant regional talent that we should really be engaging and lifting up and celebrating this year? And it's, I'm not starting from scratch and starting to Google and look at lists online. I kind of have a lot of institutional knowledge there that's helpful.
You have good instincts on who to call and what could work.
I know a few people,
right?
Which is nice.
And when you think about, you used the word before to describe A21 as an experiential agency. And not to say the word experiential is overused, but it's used, in a lot of different instances. What's kind of the A21 take on what an experiential agency or an experiential company is all about?
I mean, I think for A21, we, as I've gotten to know the company better, we really grew out of a place of being an event production company. That was the bread and butter. And that's where it really started. And in fact, South Beach Food and Wine was the agency's very first client, very first project, almost 20 years ago. We'll celebrate our 20th anniversary in next January. And so the fundamental starting place was production, event production. And over the years, we have added on marketing services and branding services for our partners. We have added on a whole sales team that now will go out and bring in corporate partners to support, our portfolio of assets to do other things. We have a partnership fulfillment team. So now once we bring all of these people into the mix in our events, we have a team that actually takes care of them, oversees their execution. We have a fabrication team now that, you go to a lot of these events and someone's got a 10 by 10 incredible kind of moment for their brand. We now have a team in-house that builds and installs those things. And so for us, it all kind of kind of grew out of this production piece. But now I think we feel like a very well-rounded experiential agency that doesn't just do the production. We can layer on the brand experience. We can handle the marketing, the social strategy around all of this, and deliver all under one roof. Predominantly food and wine experiences. That's our bread and butter. And I would say from what I can see, we're the biggest player in the United States, maybe even globally from what I've kind of dug around. But we do also play in the art fair space and, have kind of entertained some other verticals.
And ultimately, what makes a great food experience or food festival or?
In my perspective,
Yeah.
the Kris Moon perspective.
Yes, this is a Kris Moon perspective.
It is all about striking the sweet spot of having events that are fun and a vibe, that have really quality food, beverage within them, and enough people that it feels like a party, but not so many people that you're just standing in lines all day, right? And it's my personal biggest pet peeve in the food festival space that you just walk from line to line, and every line you get in, there's 40 people in front of you.
Yeah.
That, to me, personally, is not fun. Right. And even at James Beard, it was something we discussed a lot about our larger events. What is the ratio of chef stations to guests, beverage stations to guests, where a guest may have to wait in line behind 8 people, but not behind 40 people. Right. And you never can totally control that because there may be one station that's slammed, but right, to try to think about
Sure.
What's the right capacity, because to me, ultimately, that's what it comes down to: hospitality. Everything for me is about hospitality. And if you think about the experience through the guest perspective, is this enjoyable? Is this fun? Can I get another bite when I need one? Can I get a drink easily when I need one and then come back and hang out with my friends and love the music?
Ultimately, how do you even gauge visitor guest experience in the event world? Like, what are some of the ways that you guys think about
surveys after the fact, NPS scores, right? Anecdotal, testimonial feedback.
Social, I'm sure, is
social,
big,
definitely. Right? Sentiment, tracking sentiment online. It's not an exact science for any of us that are in this space, but very important to obviously keep the pulse on those things.
Right. And always weather could play a factor on the outdoor stuff, right?
We don't talk about weather in the events world.
You have an in-house weather prediction team, right?
We don't say the R word.
So in terms of like different partnerships that you guys do, do you feel like you're more suited to come into an event of sorts that's already been in existence and they recognize that they're missing this secret sauce of what you guys bring to the table? Or do you think you're better suited to work with a group from literally ideating a new food festival concept and being their partner from day one? Or both?
Yeah, it's probably not a fair answer, but I think our team at a21 is actually really good at both.
Okay.
And one of the things that I think and have observed makes us unique, and I would say is a bit of our secret sauce, is that we are good at both. So we have a number of people that come to us and say, we have this thing that has not exactly been working. We need a new production company. Can you help us tear it apart and put it back together? And we do that. But we also have a handful of new assets in development right now where people have come to us and said, we want to launch a new asset in X market. Can we bring you on to consult from the ground up and help us build something that meets their objectives? And that could be a bunch of things. It could be that it really resonates with the local community. It can be that it is going to be a draw for tourism and put heads in beds, and this is going to be a destination event. Is it accessible? Is it super highbrow? Like all of these things. And we have a handful of those projects that we're building from the ground up right now that will launch in 2026. So it's a bit of both.
And is return rate important? If you do an annual event, are you guys tracking South Beach year by year? Do you have some, what you know, do you have original 20-year now veterans attending that show, you think?
I don't know about 20-year, but there is a lot of year-over-year consistency, particularly in South Beach. I mean, South Beach is the OG, right? The biggest in this country and really the OG, and what Lee Schrager started and built there. Nothing else kind of comes close to the scale and size of it. And there is nothing wrong with being on the beach in Miami in late February for a food and wine festival. Certainly the setting helps. But there is, from what I have kind of heard, there is a lot of repeat
That's good.
attendance.
And is there you read all about people drinking less and being, more, not that drinking is unhealthy, but some will argue that it's probably better not to drink so often. Have you seen any trends towards food and something else festivals, food and drink festivals, non-alcoholic?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think, there is a much discussed potential headwind in the global alcohol market. Depends who you talk to, how they feel about that. And, I think we've been seeing this for a number of years. And even when I was still at JBF, we talked about this a lot. Really making sure that we would build out an experience, and we do this at a21 as well, that we build out an experience within the festival that feels authentic and special for a non-drinker. And so there's incredible no and low ABV beverages out on the market now, a lot of whom are now owned by the distributors who also own all of the major alcohol brands. And so you have people like Seedlip or Ritual or Liars or Spiritless, all of these brands that are now playing in this space as well. And I think trying to tell the story and are doing a good job that you can love the festival experience, you can be really into food and beverage, and you can buy a ticket and you can come and hop around all the chef stations, and there are also plenty of beverage options for you besides water, right? And for so long it was just water, or maybe there was soda somewhere, or as they say where I'm from in Kansas, pop. But I'll say soda. I've been in New York long enough.
And if you say poppy, that even means something else these
Yes.
days, right?
But these days, I feel like, there's a lot of effort to build an experience that kind of can cater to everyone.
When you have a festival, use South Beach as an example, that's in a geographical location, there's a base, everything's working well, great story, keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
But then how do you feel in the example where you guys would come in and infuse a new creative approach? What do you think ultimately is most important or least important when you're reshifting or reformatting an event that wants to shake things up a little bit? Is it the geography? Is it the...
I think it's most important to first unpack what's been working, right? And in any of those instances, it's not 100% broken. There are always things that are beloved, that have been successful, particularly in a festival model, because there's a lot of different things happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding and really evaluating what's been working and what has been successful is where I would start, because those things you don't necessarily want to scrap, right? And I think a lot of times in just kind of the creative world in general, we can get attached to things that we love and we thought were good ideas. And even when they didn't pan out as good ideas or they weren't successful, creatives, myself included, sometimes have a hard time letting go of things that we thought were great ideas that weren't. And so I would always advocate for kind of evaluating, like, okay, well, what here was great, right? Did some of these events sell out? If they did, it's a pretty good marker that people loved this theme or they loved this type of event, a walk around versus a dinner or a dinner versus a walk around. Let's start there. And then let's also now articulate, let's get back to KPIs, right? Forget all the programming for a moment, forget all the themes, but in whoever is building this thing and what you were trying to build, what were you trying to accomplish, right? Because ultimately we need to retool a festival and retool the programming toward that.
And New York City Wine and Food Festival is an A21 project.
We are, for the first year ever, doing all of the production. So we've worked on on New York City Wine and Food Festival for many years, but for the first year ever, we are doing it in totality, in partner with Lee Schrager and Southern Glaziers.
And that's happening and scheduled for
October 15th through 19, this coming fall.
2025.
2025, here in New York City, and super exciting. The festival has kind of grown in stretched out across all of New York and the boroughs over the last couple of years, but that's not the roots of how it started. It really started kind of in the meatpacking district and on the west side. And so this year we're trying to get back to our roots a little bit and have decided to call the South Street Seaport area home for the festival, and to really try to anchor the major events, the grand tastings, the signature events within this neighborhood to get a little bit back to that neighborhood feel. Which includes, of course, a handful of events that will take place here with you guys as well.
No, it's exciting. And for those that aren't familiar with the New York City Wine and Food Festival, how do you even frame it or explain it?
It is the sister to South Beach Food and Wine Festival, right? So kind of the second edition after that. It is not as large as South Beach, but it is a major player. New York City Wine and Food Festival is going on its 18th year. We have come to expect, on average, about 40,000 people to be a part of the festival every year, so not small. I think South Beach this year maybe was over 60 or 65,000, but 40 is a pretty hefty number. And it is really a celebration of the food and beverage industry, certainly in the New York area and the tri-state area, but increasingly as well, chefs from across the country coming in to be a part of that. And who doesn't want to be a part of a festival in New York in the middle of October, like the best month of the year to be here in this city, and on the seaport.
Great setting, good time of year.
Yeah.
Weather included. It's
Correct.
all going to work out and be amazing. I mean, ultimately, the New York City food scene, let's just say food scene versus food and wine scene. Recently, I've been seeing a lot of social posts referencing that, like, New York just all around is the best city for food in the world. Now that you are living in Miami, so I know maybe residency-wise, how do you feel about the New York City food scene these days?
I think the New York City food scene is phenomenal, and I think it's always been phenomenal. Like any food scene in any city, it ebbs and flows, right? And so I think my sense is that the New York City restaurant scene is kind of in like peak hot moment right now. But the last 7 years have been a little like, right? And so it's really exciting to see everything that's happening here, right? There's incredible concepts being launched, really great options, a lot happening in this city. I am slightly biased in this moment because I am now living in Miami.
Which is also a great food scene.
And the Miami restaurant scene is on fire right now. A lot of which started because of the pandemic and the kind of influx of all of us New Yorkers that found our way down there at that time. But it has really just continued to be a very exciting place. But to tie this all together, I'd say the nice thing is there's such a connection between New York City and Miami that I feel like those two food scenes can live side by side in a very harmonious, coexisting way.
And when you guys think about the way you curate and program now that you're doing and running full production on the event, what are some of the shifts or trends that you're seeing that you feel like would make sense to include? I don't know if it's all been revealed yet, the schedule and who's participating. So we don't have to give too much away yet. We'll keep the audience, wondering how it's all going to play out. But what are just things you're seeing in New York and elsewhere that would be logically infused into the Wine and Food Festival?
I mean, I think there's general themes around there are cuisines that are kind of universally loved across these events. So whether it's the Burger Bash event in Sobe that's also been in New York that is always just a crowd pleaser, or events that focus on Mexican cuisine, tacos, tequila, real crowd pleasers. I think we're challenging ourselves this year to do exactly as I kind of articulated earlier in this conversation, to think about the things that work and that people love and how to not walk away from those, but is there a fresh take on them, right? And how do you bring in a slightly different ingredient or a different focus through the talent curation without abandoning the kind of overarching theme that people love? So I'm excited about how the programming is coming together. It will be public by early summer, so it's not too much longer to wait.
I always feel like I find out about it, like just like I find out about it early, but I then really dive into it a little bit late, and I'm like, shit, that thing's sold out, or I wish I could go to
Well,
that.
you're not going
So,
to miss the boat this
right.
year because we're working
This year
together.
we know somebody there, so it should be a little bit easier. But what does success look like when you put something like that on and come, the end of October next year, reflecting back on this year, you in a COO seat working with the other leadership team, what does success look like at an event level or even for you running a business like you guys do?
For me, in my seat at a21, it is really about operational excellence. And in the 5 months that I've been with the company, we've had so many conversations about what does it look like to strive for excellence every day in everything that we do. That really motivates me as a person. It's what motivated me in my job at James Beard Foundation, and it continues to motivate me today, and it motivates our team. And so a lot of conversation about like, this will be one of the largest festivals that our company has ever produced, soup to nuts. How do we make sure that it is also not just one of the biggest things that we've done, but it's also one of the best things that we've done from an execution standpoint? And so I won't bore you with all those little details because that's a bunch of nitty gritty planning and systems and right how you cross every T and dot every I. But I think that commingled with the topic we've been discussing internally a lot around how to make sure we approach everything through this lens of hospitality. I maintain that we and our whole portfolio of what we do in the food and beverage space sits squarely in the hospitality industry. And so it's actually not enough to check the boxes and that the production ran smoothly. I want to know that our team thought about how to go above and beyond, how to anticipate guest needs, how to anticipate talent needs, and that we led with this hospitality mindset. And people walked away and said, gosh, I've done all these other festivals and sometimes they can feel transactional, but in this one I felt really taken care of. And so for me, I want to get to the other side of this and sit down to debrief with our team and have everybody say, we crushed it, right? It went well, but we also feel like we showed up differently, which contributes to just further solidifying the relationship of this company.
And ultimately, it seems like the industry that you're serving in these examples has leaned in so heavily to hospitality and their patrons and the people that eat at restaurants, the customers,
Right.
they expect that. And so if you as the event producer also think similarly as you always have, but now even more so,
Right.
I feel like that's the real unlock.
Absolutely. It's critical. And for me, I think it's one of the things that can continue to differentiate the work that we do in the market and why we can continue to be best in class.
Best in class. You took the words out of my mouth. So we have a segment on the show called Rocket Round
Okay.
that I briefly hinted to.
Yes,
I
I'll
did
try
not
not
give
to be
you all the
scared.
questions. I didn't send you the questions. This is like the magicians, right? But these are meant to be shorter form answers. If you want to run with something, you're more than welcome to. And we're allowing passes of questions
Okay.
if need be.
Okay.
Go-to comfort meal.
I am a total sucker for pepperoni pizza.
Favorite pizza place.
I have a problem. I have a gluten allergy, so it's not really a fair question.
Okay.
It's wherever I can find decent gluten-free pizza, but I am obsessed with pizza.
Since you come from the music world, I asked you this. Now I think it's a relevant question. First concert you ever attended?
I'm such a nerd because I don't think I went to any like mainstream music concerts. I went to an Audra McDonald concert in high school because I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed with her.
Yeah. This is in Kansas. No, where'd you
Yeah,
say?
she was touring across the country, and I went and sat in a concert, and it was like the greatest night of my life up until that point in time. She's a favorite.
Favorite season in Miami?
Favorite season in
You've been there
Miami?
for more than a year.
I've been there for 3 years.
Okay.
I think fall. There, it's not really fall, but fall.
Favorite season in New York City?
Definitely fall.
So
September, October.
the Food and Wine Festival, you get to
I'm
be in
excited
both
to be
places.
here.
What's one thing you look for in a new client?
Uh, a, how to say this? A gut check. I like to work with people I like to work with, right? And there's a lot of work to be done out there. And this work is hard. And so we kind of joke that we want to work with people we like to work with.
Good one. A brand you think does hospitality well?
Oh, there's so many right now. But I will just shout out Boca Restaurant Group, Kevin Boehm from Chicago, as a really stellar example.
What's a small joy that you savor?
So where I live in Miami now is right on the bay, on the mainland side. And every morning I make my coffee and I sit along the water for 15 or 20 minutes before I start my day. And it makes me really happy to start my morning staring at the bay.
What'd you do this morning since you're in New
I
York?
did not stare at the bay.
Yeah.
I stepped out of my hotel into New York City, which I also love.
One piece of advice you always come back to?
I had a professor in college when I was pursuing an opera career that said every week at the start of class, she said, if there is anything else in this world that you could see yourself being happy doing, you should go do it. And I have applied that to every step of my career because life is short and way too short to show up every day doing something that you're miserable doing. And I actually just gave this piece of advice to one of my colleagues at a21 last week, where I was just like, you have to ask yourself, like, is there something else that you would be happier doing every day? Because if so, you should go do that, right? And not because I was trying to kick them out or because they wanted to leave, but I think it's a profound piece of advice that, anyway, has driven a lot of my decisions.
Great. I've asked the question in the past, what would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing? I am going to hold that off, in line with your answer there. How about, what's the best part of what you do today?
I think the best part of what I do today is getting to spend so much time with the actual members of our community, the food and beverage community. Which was the same at JBF. I just love being with chefs and restaurateurs and beverage people, and they feel like a different group of artists than the artists I grew up with, but still a group of artists.
One thing most people don't know about you.
I played ice hockey when I was younger, which probably would surprise you.
How'd you play?
I was defender, and I really liked to skate, but I didn't love the hockey piece so much.
All right, I got two more here. A personal ritual that keeps you grounded.
I almost religiously take a cycling class every Saturday morning and literally try to build my travel schedule around that.
Indoor or outdoor?
Indoor.
Okay.
But just
That's
in terms
important.
of like keeping me in a cadence in terms of fitness, and there's something about a really hard indoor cycling class to me that just feels like hitting reset, and that if I skip a couple of Saturdays in a row, I'm not in a great place.
Most memorable James Beard Awards moment.
There really have been so many. Can I give you two?
Yeah, two.
Because one was special for me, which was the first year that I had kind of come up to a level within the Beard Foundation and in my role that I had a speaking role on stage at the Beard Awards. The first year I got to actually be on stage and have a part of the show was obviously very special, and it felt kind of like I finally came full circle to what I set out to do in the first place.
To be able to do podcasts, right?
Exactly. But the moment that first came to mind, which is what I probably should have shared, was James Beard, the man, had an assistant for many years named Clay Triplett, who outlived him by 20-something years. And so when the Beard Foundation was started, Clay became our house steward. And so every day he would come to the James Beard House and sit in the front room and greet every chef that came in and regale them with stories about James Beard and the years that they spent together cooking for Julia Child and all of this stuff. And he was a quirky, aging man that I had a great relationship with. And when he was later on in his years and the Beard Awards were celebrating an anniversary year, I can't remember if it was 20 or 25th anniversary, and he was not able to walk. He was in a wheelchair at this point. I convinced him to let me come pick him up and put him in a suit coat and take him to the James Beard Awards at Lincoln Center and like push him down the red carpet.
Amazing.
Because he hadn't been in decades and hadn't seen what it had become. And it was just like such a special moment and every chef in the room knew him, and we wheeled him down to the front of the stage at the start of the show to just like pay tribute to him for a moment. It was really special.
Beautiful. All right, Kris, appreciate you making the time to be on the show.
Thank you for having me.
There's more collaborations with us personally and in the business world that we'll reveal over time, but I'm happy you could be here and share your story.
Thanks for having me.